Hello and welcome to the Student of Life podcast. I'm Olivia Vasilev and this is a podcast about deconstructing the tools and ideas that can make life work a little better. We'll talk about everything from the biology of energy to the psychology of motivation, all through the lens of my own experiments and lessons learned, and some scientific research, of course. And today we're starting with a look back at a personal time capsule, my Year 10 diary. Finding this diary was like an archaeological dig in my own childhood bedroom. The artifact in question? One purple faux velvet notebook, slightly musty, with a flimsy brass lock that screamed secrets inside, which, let's be honest, probably just meant which boy from Home and Away I had a crush on. Cracking it open was definitely a journey. The handwriting is a chaotic mix of neat, determined print and frantic, loopy cursive. You can literally see the mood swings in the ink. And the doodles. So many stars and song lyrics. But this isn't just teenage angst. This is neuroscience in action. You see, our prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that's basically the CEO, responsible for long-term planning and impulse control, was still under major construction. A neurologist named Dr. Francis Jensen compares the teenage brain to a Ferrari. It's got a powerful engine, but it's equipped with cheap, unskilled brakes. So we had all these big feelings and grand ambitions, but the part of the brain needed to build a logical step-by-step bridge between them was literally still being wired. We were all accelerator, no brakes, which kind of explains so much. And right at the front of this neurological framework's display was a list titled, with immense seriousness, Goals for this year. Number 1, get an A+ in biology. Number 2, grow your quads and shoulders. Number 3, eat healthy. Number 4, get a job as a debating adjudicator. And number 5, get your L's, which for our non-Australian listeners is essentially like the first step of getting your driver's license. Looking at this list now, it's a masterclass in what works and what, well, doesn't. It all comes down to our first strategy, knowing what kind of goal you're setting. Let's do a quick breakdown. Get an A in biology and get your L's, well, these are what I would like to call outcome goals. They're binary. You did it or you didn't. I got the A+, and not only got my L's, I've even got my P's now. Check and check. These are satisfying because crossing them off gives your brain a clear hit of dopamine. The reward, literally chemical. It's essentially a finished chapter. But then we have the others, like grow your quads and shoulders and eat healthy. These are a completely different beast. These are what I like to call process goals. They're not events with a finish line, they're lifestyles. You don't achieve health and then stop. You have to maintain it. And here was my mistake. I was judging my process goals like they were outcome goals. I looked at grow your quads and thought, well, they're not perfect, so I must have failed. But that's like saying you failed at breathing because you only did 20,000 times today instead of 25,000. The key is to build a system for the process goals. Don't aim for the outcome, aim for the behavior. Go to the gym 3 times a week. That's a system. Eat a vegetable with dinner. That's a system. The system is what quietly, reliably builds the result over time. This leads us to the arch nemesis of progress. Vagueness. Eat healthy is not a goal. It's an idea. It's a cloud of good intentions that you can't actually build on. Your brain is an incredible supercomputer, but it needs specific code to run. Eat healthy is like a syntax error. However, eat 1 piece of fruit with my breakfast is a command it can execute. But we can level this up even further with a psychological super tool called the implementation intention, or as I like to call it, an if-then plan. Research from people like psychologist Peter Gollwitzer shows that people who use these if-then plans are 2 to 3 times more likely to actually follow through. So instead of the vague, I will study more that we all use, it becomes, if it is 7 p.m. on a Tuesday, then I will go to the library and review biology for 45 minutes. You're not just stating a goal, you're preloading the decision. You're creating a tiny automatic pilot for your future self, for when your willpower kind of always runs low. We all have those moments, so you got to plan ahead. It's like you're the boss, giving your brain a crystal clear instruction manual instead of a post-it note that just says, figure it out. But even with a crystal clear plan, the scariest part is often just starting. The fear behind get a job was the fear of rejection. I mean, the fear behind this podcast was a symphony of, what if I sound stupid? What if no one listens? The strategy here is beautifully simple. I call it the first step protocol. You don't need to see the whole staircase. You just need to take the first small, manageable step. Your goal isn't become a debating adjudicator. It's spend 20 minutes this Saturday reaching how to become one. Researching. Reach it eventually. That's it. That's the win. Just that little bit of research, that first step. This works because of a psychological principle called the Zeigarnik effect. Our brains hate unfinished tasks. They cling to them. By taking that first small step, you create a cognitive itch, a form of mental energy just waiting to be released. That makes you far more likely to return and scratch it by taking the next step. And this is where I bring in the big gun I didn't really have as a teenager: accountability. A study found that if you commit a goal to another person, your chance of success jumps to 65%. But if you set a specific appointment to check in with that person about your progress, that probability skyrockets to 95%. Tell a friend your first step. It does two things. It creates healthy social pressure, and more importantly, the act of saying it out loud forces you to clarify it in a way that thinking about it never does. For example, I told my friend, I'm recording my podcast intro on Tuesday. Suddenly, it wasn't an idea anymore. It was a plan she knew about. Which brings me to my own method for making things real. It's one thing to think of a goal. It's another to commit to it. A famous study at the Dominican University found that people who wrote down their goals were 42% more likely to achieve them. But here's the fascinating part. The act of writing engages the reticular activating system known as the RAS, which is in your brain. Think of the RAS as your brain's personal search engine. When you physically write down, find a new job, you're programming your RAS to actively filter your world for relevant opportunities. You're not just remembering the goal, you're literally changing what you pay attention to. But I like to take it a step further. I have this little ritual where I essentially light a candle. Now, whether or not you believe in the universe listening or any kind of religion, that isn't the point. The point is, this is a powerful way to take your ideas from inside your head and put them into the world around you. It's about creating a moment. I light a simple tea light and I state my intention out loud. Not as a hope, like I hope I start a podcast, but as a declaration. I am now recording the first episode of my podcast. By doing that, you're making yourself accountable. You've said it. You've given it air. It's no longer just a quiet thought you can ignore. It's a commitment you've witnessed yourself make. That tiny flame becomes a symbol of that promise. Find your version of that, something that helps you cross the line from thinking to doing. So, here's how I actually made it happen. First, I defined it clearly. I said, this is an outcome goal. This outcome is publish episode 1. No vagueness, okay? Then I got super specific. I told myself, okay, the rule is I will write for 30 minutes each morning. No debates. And I used that if-then plan. I literally said, if the clock hits 8 a.m., then I open my laptop and I write, before I'm even allowed to check my phone. But before any of that, I took a laughably small step. The very first thing I did was just say, all right, just brainstorm some topics for 15 minutes. That's it. That was the whole goal for the day. Then I created accountability. I texted a friend and told her my deadline, and just putting that into the world made it feel real. And finally, I committed. I did my little candle thing, I lit it, and I said out loud, I am recording the first episode of my podcast. And that was it. Contract was signed. That sequence is the only reason you're hearing this right now. So, That diary wasn't just a record of who I was. It was a messy, earnest first draft of a blueprint. Today, we build the toolkit. But a blueprint and tools are useless without the fuel to power the builder. So next week, we're getting microscopic. We're talking about ATP, adenosine triphosphate. This isn't a boring biology lesson, don't worry. This is the story of the literal spark of light. It's the currency of energy that powers every single thought you have, every beat of your heart, every movement you make. We'll break down how your diet directly fuels this process in your mitochondria, the powerhouse of your cells, and why sleep is non-negotiable for clearing out the metabolic waste that makes you feel slow. It's the ultimate foundation for having the fuel to do any of this. Until then, never stop learning. I'm Olivia Vasilev, and this is the Student of Life podcast.